Well, hello, everybody. Hello, hello, hello. This is Sharon Harrell, the retirement coach diva with Royalty Business Group. And this evening, I have the pleasure of having with me Avia Cumberbatch, who is with CAC Property Group. And she is here to talk about real estate investing. I'm so excited to have Avia with us this evening. And Avia, if you could just tell our attendees a little bit about yourself, how you decided to go into real estate investing.
Yes, yes. Good evening, everyone. I hope everyone's doing well tonight. As Sharon said, my name is Avia Cumberbatch, and I decided to go into real estate investing because it's always been something that I was intrigued by. I bought my first house, literally my little townhouse, when I first finished college, and I sold that townhouse a couple of years later, and I made a good amount of money. I sold it right before the whole housing crash. And I made I had like 5, 6 offers on this little townhouse and I made a big chunk of money off of it. And I said, you know what? I think I like real estate. I want to try this and see how this works out. So it's been exciting ever since and I love it.
So, Avia, how long has that been?
So I actually started as an investor in 2016. I bought my first house when I was younger and sold that. And then I just started doing research myself about real estate investing because I know one thing about real estate investing, you have to know what you do and understand how it works. So it's just been an amazing journey since then. Really had an amazing partner, that one of my clients that I partnered with, and we bought a house together and we started from there, and he kind of coached me through the process. And then I became part of a real estate investment group, which is important to kind of get around people who think like you and learn from them. And knowledge is power when applied. So it's so important to get around and learn from people who have already done what you're doing, and you can learn from their mistakes and their pitfalls and just kind of help yourself grow from there.
So you brought up quite a few things that I want to um, elaborate on. So you mentioned that you partnered with someone in the beginning. So tell me about that. Like, what made you decide to do that versus go out there on your own?
So great question. I love that question. So for me, being in the industry for years in finance, I understand how important it is to have a coach or a mentor. I think if you want to be successful in anything in life, especially when you're new to something, right? It's important for you to learn from someone who's already done it, learn from their, mistakes, know the process, learn from that. And my partner also had connections with private lenders. So there's a difference between a private lender and a bank, right? So it was a great win-win situation for us both. I learned a lot. He was able to teach me what he knows. Of course, it wasn't for free, but it was worth avoiding some of those pitfalls that I've seen a lot of investors fall into when it comes to real estate investing or any type of investing, right? If you don't know which way you're going, then any road makes sense, right?
Right, right, right. And then you said you were also got into an investment group. So tell us, like, what are investment groups and how did that help you?
Oh, good question. So the investment groups became part of, they helped me because it was a network of people that worked together. So we even paired up to do some deals together. So what you do is you become part of the group. They have like a training program. And now I teach that training program to other investors who are interested in learning and just really immersing yourself in getting around other people who think like you. And I'm actually leaving tomorrow to go out of town for an event for my real estate investment group. So we get together, COVID has slowed us down a little bit, but we usually get together every year, have a conference, have some guest speakers. The last conference before COVID hit, we had Magic Johnson come and speak. Now, he was amazing. That man, besides for being an amazing basketball player, he was an amazing businessman. So
Wow.
really just getting around and learning from people who have been successful, not just in real estate, and he owns lots of real estate, but being successful in business, period, is so important to learn from people who've done what you want to do. And then they will tell you the truth, which I love about it. Like I do with my students, like, okay, this is the pitfalls. If someone tells you they've only made money in real estate, they haven't lost, run from them. I don't know where that works in any business. You got to learn how to grow, right? Okay. So that's why it's so important for me. And plus, I'm in constant contact with these people. So when they come across deals, we work together and see if it's a great business relationship for us to work together for those deals.
That's good. So let's talk about the basic new real estate investor, someone who is interested in real estate investing, has been looking at it for a while, ready to get started and step out there. Tell us what would be the first steps that they need to know as a novice to get into real estate investing.
That's a great question. So what I would do is the first thing I would do is learn about your current market, because it's nothing like going into real estate investing and you don't know what your market's like or what to expect from your market. So really do your research and learn about your market. Now, if that means contacting a local realtor in your area, I am licensed too as a realtor, and the reason I got my license was for my business, but it's actually morphed into something amazing because I help my current clients with, buying and selling properties as well. So really know your market, talk to someone who knows the market, and really education is really so important. And nowadays, I mean, if money is an issue, you can go online and, YouTube and learn about real estate investing. But just remember, always do credible sources, right? Because you can get all information out there, doesn't necessarily mean it's the correct information. So kind of do some due diligence and do some research on the person that's providing the information too as well, right? Kind of vet that person. And then once you know your area and the market, like really put it down to a certain area. So if you know you're looking for a certain price point, because remember you have to put some money down to purchase these properties. If you're looking for a certain price point, then make sure you go to an area that is gonna enable you to get the property that you need, and have the money you need to put down. Real estate investing is different from purchasing your own home, because you have to put more down to be a real estate investor, especially if you don't have what we call skin in the game, which means you haven't actually been an investor before. So you're a new investor. So you're going to have to make sure you know the processes and procedures. So then contact a local small bank. Find out, tell them you're a new real estate investor, you're interested in learning about some of their programs they have for real estate investors to purchase property. They're going to ask you some questions like, are you going to rehab it? Are you just buying and holding it? Like, knowing these terms are important. This is why knowledge is power when applied. Does that make sense?
Definitely, definitely. So you said a lot of great stuff, about knowing your market, going out there, doing your due diligence and finding, people to work with, who to get educated from. How did you determine that you wanted to work with the people that you've worked with?
Good question. So I do go through a process where I vet the people that I work with, and they do the same for when it comes to me, right? So who you go into partnership with is really important, because that can either help grow your business or it could kind of put you back. Okay. So learn about your investors or your partners. What I mean is not just learning, okay, their name and what they do, kind of find out what their goals are. Okay. So I have an extensive checklist that I use to say, okay, why should I work with you? Or why do we work well together? What do you bring to the table? For example, like, what are your strengths and what are my strengths, and see if we're able to work together. And then don't just make a decision, on the fly, and really do your due diligence. Make sure you can work together, because lots of business relationships, they sound good, right? But until you really get to know this person, make sure you guys really have the strength to work together, meaning your strength is, opposite from what they're doing, and make sure you actually click, and that you guys can have a long-term partnership. So consider this like, it's not a marriage in per se of, husband and wife, or wife and wife, husband and husband. It's a marriage of business, if that makes sense. So you want to really know about that person and make sure you want to be connected to that person, right? Because these processes can take some time to really bring it to fruition. Okay. So it's got to be somebody that you can trust, and that you've done your due diligence and made sure that they are what they say they are, and that they can bring to the table the things that they say that they can do, and that you guys can work well together as a partnership.
Okay. And so you researching the people that you're going to work with. How about the type of investments? Because I know for me, when I think about real estate investing, it's usually for um, people who like, buy homes and then they might rent it out,
Right.
But you mentioned about when you go to the bank, they're going to ask you, are you going to rehab it? I guess, are you going to flip it?
Right.
What are you going to do with it? So how do you determine what you're going to do with the property that you are investing in?
That's good. So that would be where that research comes into play, right? So you have to know what you're able to do. So, for example, if you don't have much money to put down, then maybe starting with a smaller project would be good for you. Like maybe start off in an area that is less expensive, right? And then you have to know what your strategy is. What is your real estate investment strategy? Do you want to just make some quick money, roll it over into another property? Or do you want to buy and hold and start to create a passive income stream for yourself? So that's how you can decide where you start. Now, for me, in the beginning, I started off rehabbing because I wanted to take the funds from the rehab properties and roll that over into other properties. And then after a couple of rehab flips, then I started purchasing buy and hold properties. So you really have to know what you are working with and what you can handle, right? And the only way you'll really learn that is by doing your research and finding out, okay, well, if I do buy and hold properties, what comes with that? Like, how much does it cost to keep the property up and running? How much money can I make from my rent? Remember, all this you need to know before you purchase a property, because the money is not made when you go to rent the property. The money is made before when you purchase the property. Because if you don't purchase the property for the right price, you could technically be where you're losing money, or you might just break even. Make sense? So you have to really know what you want. So if it's a long-term play, meaning you want to do this for a long period of time and have that passive income stream coming in, then maybe you want to start with, rental properties. But if it's a short-term play and you just want to start building up your cash flow, right? So what I would do is, like I teach people when it comes, to money and finance, if you made $50,000 on the deal, okay, please don't go out and spend all of that.
Mm.
You might want to, maybe break off $5,000 for yourself and say, hey, I'm gonna go get something because I worked hard. Then put the other 45 back into the next property. And then you just keep building from there. And so you can buy better properties. Now you're building a track record of success, and banks will start to say, okay, she not only did one deal, now she has 2 or 3 or 4 deals under her belt.
Yes. So I just want to remind our attendees who we have with us today. We have Avia Cumberbatch, who is with CAC Properties Group, and we are talking about real estate investment and residual income. So we're going to take any questions that come into the chat from our attendees, but we want to keep going because I am curious to know more about the financing part.
Mhm.
So you said about if they're new, maybe going to a small bank
Yes.
or financial institution and telling them what you want to do. And I know that you just mentioned a few things that you could do with property, like rehab it, flip it. I've heard where people come in and they come in where somebody might be, in foreclosure and they buy the property and then, I think that's another way of flipping it too.
Right.
Just, get it before it goes into foreclosure and buying it and then, having an investor come in to do it. And there are other things that you could do. But when it comes to the financing part of it, how do you make sure that you are getting the financing from the bank? And then also, when would you go to a hard money lender to try to get financing or some other, area of financing?
Good question. So I would start off with you have to learn what is in your areas, meaning your box, like the type of financing you can do. So hard money lenders are great, but you got to research them, right? So if you're going to research hard money lenders, pick like 2 or 3 of them in the area, but you have to know what you want to do, right? So you have to know your price point. You have to know how much money you have to put down, right? Because they're going to ask all these questions, right?
Mhm.
Um, so research 2 or 3 in the area that work in your state. That's very important because all of them don't work in the state where you're located.
Mhm.
So for example, if you find one online or something, you go, oh, they look like a good hard money lender.
Mhm.
And then you call them and do research, find out if they work in your state. And then this is where you have to ask questions. That's why it's so important. Ask them, what are their terms? Is
Mhm.
there, some type of penalty if you're late on getting the job done, or if there's an early prepayment penalty if you pay it off quicker than. So these are the kind of things you want to know. And so that's why a local bank, especially a bank that maybe you deal with, they'll be more inclined to help you and answer questions, right?
Mhm.
Because you've done business with them. So I would say start with a bank you're already doing business with, right? So for
Mhm.
example, if you've been with your bank for years, utilize that. Walk in, ask them who does. If they first, you got to ask if they do any type of investor financing, right? And
Mhm.
then if they do, then ask them questions. Okay, so how does it work? I'm a new investor. I'm looking to get started. Walk me through your process. What do you need from me? Are you specifically, what are your loan rates? What are you looking to get as far as a return? So those are the kind of things that you need to know this up front because they're going to ask you about it anyway, but also you need to do some due diligence and you're interviewing them as well. It's not just, I need
Mhm.
you. Is we need to work together. This is going to benefit us both. So make sure you have that attitude when you go in there. It's not, oh, I need you. No, we need each other. How can I help? Because once you do 1 or 2 properties and you trust them, then they'll continue to build with you. And at some point, you even want to start building up lines of credit, right? With these banks, because I'm doing business with you. Now give me a line of credit so that way I can purchase more properties. So
Right.
that's the kind of relationships you want to build. But the only way you can do that is to do your research and find out what they have to offer for you, right?
Yeah, so, I said hard money lender, assuming that our attendees all know what hard money lenders,
Right.
that term means. Can you give us the definition of a hard money lender?
Yes, good question. So a hard money lender is someone who lends you money for a short period of time. So think about it like, um, if you have a property that you're going to flip and just turn it over really fast, they are good short-term lenders. They're going to let you borrow money for a short period of time. And most of them have dealt with investors for years and years, so they know the market better. They come up with the funds faster, whereas a bank they take a little longer to get the money to you because of just the fact of what they do. They're not in business for quick funding, right? They have to do checks, they have to get the property information. So hard money lenders are that good. You have a property right now, you need to go on it, the person's ready to sell, you go to them, you can get financing quick, like in as little as, a week or two, where a bank may take up to 30 to 45 days to get the funding to you. So they've been working with investors for years, so they know the market, they can get money quickly. And as long as the deal is a good deal, if it's a good deal, it makes sense for everyone involved because they want to make money just like you want to make money.
Right. So making sure that deal is a good deal goes again into that research to
Yes.
knowing, what would be best. Now, going back to the hard money lender, what's the average interest rate of a hard money lender compared to going through a traditional financial institution?
So I will tell you this, because COVID has changed a lot of things when it comes to real estate investing. So I couldn't even tell you right now what the average hard money would charge. I think on average, it's going to be 8, maybe to 15, 16%. Now that sounds high. Remember, these are short-term loans. So think about it like credit cards, right?
Mhm.
Whereas the bank will tend to have a little bit of a lower rate, but their process takes longer, right? And
Mhm.
some of these deals, you got to turn around kind of quick. So you might not have the 30 to 45 days that you need, maybe some like a foreclosure or something, you need to get in and get that quickly and just turn it around. So that you may pay a little bit more interest to the hard money lender, but they know the market, they know the system, they know if it's a good deal, and they're able to give you the funds really quick. So
Mhm.
that's one of the other incentives of using the hard money lenders. Plus, they deal with investors all the time, so they're more inclined to lend to investors versus a traditional bank. If they don't do much lending to investors, it's going to take some time to really get them to up to speed and make sure that they're going to qualify you for and make sure it's the right program for you.
Okay, great. So we do have someone who asked a question in the chat, our favorite girl, Lisa. And
Hi,
so,
Lisa.
so she said, what is the typical credit score needed for real estate investing?
Oh, great question, Lisa. Of course, she would have an amazing question. So nowadays, it's actually higher than it was before. Just like I said, because of COVID has kind of changed a lot of the rules and regulations. I would tell people really honestly, if your credit score, it needs to at least be a 680 or higher. If it's over 7, it's actually better. And remember, this is where partnerships work, right? So if your credit score is not as strong, but you have cash to put down, then partner with someone that you know that's an investor and work with them. If they have some experience, they've been doing this for a while, right? So they built some credibility in the market, have a track record of success. So don't ever feel like, oh no, I don't have that credit score, I can't do anything. There's always a way around things. Like I've taught people how to come in this business and do what is called house hacking, which means they purchase their first property, live in one unit, for example, buy a multi-unit and rent the other units out, right? So that way you can come in under FHA loan or conventional loan. You're living in the house, so it's still considered your home. Now you've turned your house into a money-making property for you because you have one unit, and let's say you do 4 units, because for residential, you can do up to 4 units and still be considered your home. And then you can rent the other 3 out, cash cow. See, so it's always creative ways to go about dealing with this. So even if you don't have the credit score, if you have cash and you've done your research and you know what the banks are offering in the area with the hard money lenders, now you become an asset to me, right? And then we can work well together as a partnership.
Right. So I want to thank my faithful followers who are on here typing into the chat, and those who haven't typed into the chat, make sure you give a shout out, say hey, so I know that you're there. And our next question that came in from Miss Tanya, who says, do you have to have your own money for real estate investing?
So nowadays, I hear people say you don't need any money to get started. I'm gonna be honest with you, you have to have some type of skin in the game. So think about this like a business, right, Tanya? So let's say you went to, I'm the bank now. You come to me and you say, hey, listen, I want to invest in real estate. Okay, well, I'm gonna ask you some questions. Do you have any experience? No. Okay. So do you have any money? Yeah, I have money. So I need to know that I'm going to get a return on my investment, right? That's what it's all about. And the same for you. You don't want to go and get involved in real estate unless you want to get a return on your investment, correct? So yes, you really do need some skin in the game. We call it skin in the game, which is some money to put down. But the beauty about real estate, you can start off doing something else. So for example, you could be like the middle person, like a wholesaler, for example, that comes in. If you don't have much money to get started to purchase real estate, do not let that stop you. There are so many ways to make money in this industry. A wholesaler is someone who's like a middleman, and they come in and they say, hey, I found this great deal. I'm an investor. I purchase properties. Come to me and say, hey, I found this great deal. Would you be interested? And then you make kind of a commission per se, right? Off the books, let's say $2,000 or something for finding this property, right? And you bring it to my attention, and then start saving up that money and use that to purchase your own property. But see, here's the best part about it, Sharon, because now you're learning the industry while you're doing that. So this is a plus for you, because when you're ready to purchase your own property, you know a lot more about it because you've been wholesaling and helping other investors find their properties. And along the way, as you're going through this process and learning from these investors, hey, listen, I just sold you this house. I helped you find it. Tell me some more properties you're looking for. Kind of tell me some other areas you're working in, and then start throwing in some questions. How long have you been doing this? Right? How many properties do you have under your belt? Start building relationships. This business is all about relationships, and you never know, that could be your next partner down the line.
Right. Great. And so Ms. Tanya asked the follow-up question, which was the same question that was on my mind, about how much money is an ideal amount to have.
Oh, I love that question, but it's such a loaded question because it depends on the area you live in. Everybody lives in different areas. Everybody's market is different. But let me just give you an example. Let's say if you live in an area, let's say you have Baltimore, for example. Let's say the house is $250,000, right? So let's say they say on average to come up with like a certain percentage down so that way you can come into the property and really have some skin in the game, right? So let's say if it's 250,000, right? And they say on average you should have about 20% down, right? And this is not to put down on the property. This is, you don't put it all down. This is to cover like closing costs. This is to cover your down payment, those kind of things, right? Just like if you're purchasing your own home.
Mhm.
So, I would always take whatever that final figure is. Let's say if it's 250,000 times about like 20%, and that's on average what they want you to put down, have showing your bank account, not necessarily saying you're putting all of that money down immediately, but just showing your bank account saying, hey, I can purchase this property, similar to if you're buying your own home. So the good rule of thumb is 20% down on which, if it's 125,000, there you go. Then that's half of what you would have had to put down before. So
Okay, okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. And so please keep the questions coming in, because we see that Ms. Avia is very well versed in real estate investing. And so we want to make sure that we can ask her and glean from all this knowledge that she has. So a question I have for you is, which would be the best for a new person to do, residential or commercial?
So commercial is a little bit more difficult to come in, and commercial requires a lot more money down, and more time in the industry. So I would suggest if you're just getting started, start on the residential side. It's a lot easier to purchase residential properties. And when you start getting into commercial properties, now they're going to start looking to see if you're an accredited investor. An accredited investor is someone who makes 200,000 per year or has a net worth of at least 1 million. So you're getting into the next realm of things, right? So there's the criteria to be a commercial investor is a little bit more intensive than it is to be just a regular, single family house investor or a residential investor. So
Okay,
that's what
okay.
you have to really understand. It's just a difference in how it works, but doesn't mean you can't do it.
Mhm.
Go back to find someone. You may have the
Mhm.
funds, but you don't have the experience yet. So find someone to partner up with that you trust and you've done your due diligence and you vetted them, and then you guys could work together.
Okay, all right. And so one of the things that I had heard about and I didn't think about when I first, you know, thought about pursuing real estate investing is the other fees or expenses that come with it, right? So we go out there, we think, okay, we're going to purchase a property and then we're going to flip it or we're going to rehab it. But in the process of doing that, you still have to make sure that the utilities stay on, HOA fees are paid, all these other things. So what should a person expect to pay to make sure that they have all that covered? Because you mentioned about, having a down payment and things to purchase the property, but you still have expenses until you are either able to sell that property or it brings in some type of income. So what should a person expect to have? How much money should they have set aside to do that?
Great question. We call those holding costs.
Mhm.
So yes, on average, you need to have at least 6 months of holding costs set aside, right? So what I do is I have a spreadsheet, for example, and my holding costs will consist of that, like your utilities, gas, electric, right? It'll also consist of, you have a realtor at the end that you want to help you to sell this property if you're rehabbing it or to find someone to rent it out for you, right? So those are part of your holding costs. That's important to calculate in ahead of time, right? And then you got things like cutting the grass during that
Mhm.
time frame, because I
Mhm.
haven't found a house yet that didn't have any grass. So so those now condos is different, right? But those are the kind of things you need to put into the mix, right? So plan ahead for those kind of things. You definitely have to plan ahead. That's why I said that whole 50,000 doesn't go in toward purchasing the house. There are other
Mhm.
costs, holding costs that you're going to have ahead of time that you need to plan ahead for.
Okay, all right. So another question from Miss Lisa. She says she's getting ready to go look at some property in another state. And should she get financing through a bank in that state, or does it really matter?
So yeah, it does matter because if for example, if you go to your home bank and they don't deal in that state, you can't get financing through them.
Mhm.
So this is where you doing your due diligence ahead of time makes sense. So you know the state that you want to go to, call your bank if you know if you have a local bank that you deal with, ask them if they deal in that state. If they don't, they may know or partner with someone. Remember, banks work together. They do partnerships all day, all the time too. So they may know another bank or another company that does that in that state. So then you just get that information. And if not, then you go and start looking yourself and find out if there's another branch of your bank that deals in another state, right? Makes sense. So
Mhm.
yeah,
Mhm.
that's where the due diligence comes into play. So yes, definitely you want to make sure you find a bank that works in the state that you're going to do the rehabbing in, or if the bank you want to purchase, the state where you want to purchase the rental properties. Yes, that's definitely important to know ahead of time, because you think, oh, well, I can work with my bank, but then you find out after you've done all your due diligence that they don't work in your state. That's,
Mhm.
that's something you need to know ahead of time so you don't waste your time or your money, right?
Exactly, exactly. So Miss Tanya got the questions coming in. So let
Mhm.
me let me get to Miss Tanya. She said, would being a realtor help in these transactions? That's her first question.
So I can tell you honestly, I got my license as a realtor because it helped me in my business, but I was at a different place than someone just getting started. When I first
Mhm.
got started, no, I was not a realtor. Being a
Mhm.
realtor, you have to keep up your licenses, pay your fees. So if you're just getting started and you're trying to learn the business, the real estate investment business, I wouldn't start off with a real estate license. I was
No
doing this
benefit
for a
to
while.
it.
It
Right. It
really
was no
isn't,
benefit.
because you don't really know the market.
Mhm.
And like I said, for me, it was beneficial because of what I was doing. My goals consisted of me getting my license. If that's not part of your goal, then no, it wouldn't, it doesn't, it's not going to benefit you. But you have to find a good realtor who works with an investor. See, that's what most people don't know. The realtor that just does residential properties doesn't necessarily know how to deal with an investor. It's a total different game when you're an investor, because
Mhm.
someone who's purchasing a residential property may go see 5, 10 houses. As an investor, I may have to go see 10, 15 houses in order to
Mhm.
find the one that I'm looking for, right?
Right. Right. So her next question is, should you still have an approval letter from a lender before looking at property, just as if you were buying a residential property for yourself?
Yes. And I'm gonna tell you now, no one's gonna touch you if you do not have any type of pre-approval letter.
Mm.
That works just like
Wow.
for going to purchase your own house, right?
Mhm.
Especially now with, COVID changing the whole game when it comes to, borrowing money and things.
Right.
Yes, people won't think you're serious if you don't have any type of, pre-approval letter. Think about it like you're what you're doing for work, right? You,
Mhm.
you come in every day and you work, you expect your job to pay you,
Right.
right?
Right.
So
Yes, exactly.
you come in and your job say, "Oh, I'm sorry, I can't pay you for the next 3 weeks." Right? No.
Exactly. You have to find a new job,
Right,
right?
exactly. So I'll be back in 3 weeks when you can pay me.
Right,
Don't be
exactly.
starting like that. The lender or whoever you're working with needs to see that you already ready to go. We're not going to start
Mhm.
showing you properties or go looking for things if you already haven't been pre-approved, and we know that you can qualify for the house. And so that way we also know how much you qualify for, right?
Mhm.
And we don't
Mhm.
start looking for something. You looking at something that's $500,000, you only qualify for 250,000, right? That's not
Mhm.
going to help you, nor
Right.
is it waste your time and your energy, and also the other person's time. So yes, definitely having a pre-approval letter is very important.
Okay, all right. And then her other question is it easy to do this process with condos?
So condos are a little bit different because when you look at a condo association, there's a couple of things that are involved
Mhm.
that is different from a home. So for example, like a condo, they have certain rules and regulations. So just because you may want to rehab a property at that's owned by a condo association. And I'm gonna also say this, some of these townhouses are owned by condo associations too, and most people don't know that, right?
Mm,
So do your due diligence. Call the
mhm.
agent for the house you're looking for, or call the seller and find out, hey, tell me a little bit about this. What are your condo fees? And then ask the name and number of the condo association. You can call them and get the information. Hey, look, I'm looking to buy a house. You guys cover that condo fee. Tell me a little bit about what that condo fee includes, right? You need to know those things. And then you need to know what you can do to the property, because some condos don't allow you to do but so many things. They have rules and regulations that say, let's say, for example, you want to tear that wall out and make it an open space. Oh, no, the condo association may not allow you to do that. So yes,
Mhm.
definitely need to learn the rules and regulations for that condo association. And every condo association is different. So I can't give you a blanket answer. This condo association accepts this. You would have to call the condo association or HOA if it's a house and find out what their rules and regulations are. Because what you don't want to do is buy a house, start the process, and then find out you can't do what you need to do. That's
Right.
going to, right.
So I was talking to someone and they have a co-op.
Mm,
And so they were saying about they really don't want, they inherited from a relative, and how it's just it's just been, just a big problem for them.
mm.
And can you tell us, like, what's the difference in like a condo and a co-op?
So I haven't dealt with co-ops much because of the rules and regulations are kind of different in a co-op. But a co-op is owned by it's basically what it says, is cooperative group of people who own something, right? And
Mhm.
so a condo is owned by like a condo association. They're normally a bigger company. And so their rules and regulations are pretty much standard. Co-ops can pretty much flex and change things. It's really a different realm. And I'm gonna tell you honestly, I haven't dealt with many co-ops, just because they're very it's very different, the process and what they are allow you to do and what they won't allow you to do.
Right.
They're more restrictive, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yes, that's what I was told. It's like they have a board, and then the
Mhm.
board has to, like, maybe vote you in to,
Yes,
or to allow you to purchase it's still apartment, or, but the board has to approve you. So yeah, I was like, what? But
it's
it,
a lot more red tape, and so
yeah.
that's part of your due diligence period, right? You
Right.
know exactly what you can and cannot do, and it's easy. You just ask them, hey, tell me what your rules and regulations are. What if
Mhm.
I'm looking to rehab a property? What can I do? What are things you
Right.
don't allow to be done? You need to know all this stuff ahead of time. This is why knowledge is power when it's applied. I'm gonna
Mhm.
keep saying that, because knowledge is not power if it's not applied, right? So
Right.
you have to know what you're getting. And remember, this is your money. So you need
Mhm.
to do your due diligence so you know what to look forward to. That's why I took the real estate class, because I didn't want to just go into this thing blind. I don't know about you, but I like my money. I don't want to just go in and lose
Right.
it.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. As much as the Powerball was whatever it was, I just couldn't go out there and spend my money knowing that
Right,
my chances were getting smaller and smaller, the
right.
larger it got,
You got a better chance
So,
of getting hit by lightning or mauled by a bear in Yosemite Park. Like it's really
right. Exactly, exactly. So, um, we know that we have been watching the news, and we have been seeing how the interest rates keep going up and up.
Mhm.
Tell us about, how is that affecting real estate investing now that these interest rates are going up?
So let me explain it to you this way. This is the best way I can make an analogy for people, right? So, yes, the rates are going up. When you're purchasing your home, the cost of that dollar, that interest rate, right, in dollars is going to make a difference, right? So if your mortgage was originally supposed to be $3,000 when interest rates were low, maybe it's going to be 3,250 now, right?
Mhm.
So when it comes to being a real estate investor, yes, that does come into the equation, but it's not the only part of the equation. So you can't let that stop you when it comes to being an investor, because we're looking at this from a different realm. We're looking at the total end, right? We're looking beginning with the end in mind. So I'm looking at how much money I'm going to make from this deal. So the interest rates may be a little bit higher, but remember, you're only keeping that money for a shorter period of time if you are just rehabbing a property. Now, if you buy it and you hold it, yes, the interest rates may be a little bit higher, but guess what? Your rents may be a little bit higher now. Makes sense? Because remember, right now, renting is like we're getting more and more money for rentals every day, right?
Okay.
So, because as the market change, when interest rate goes up, so then prices also go up, right? We haven't seen prices of things go down since just prices go up. So everything is relative. Everything falls in line, right? Now, again, it's different if you're purchasing your house. We're talking about an investor here. So this is your business. So you got to think about it from the stance of a business. For example, your restaurant down the street that you love, they don't go out of business because they have to pay a little bit more money for the meat, right?
Right.
What they do is they add on that price, and then now your meal becomes a little bit more expensive. So you got to think about this like a business, and it can't be emotional, right? This is a business. We're here to make money. So yes, interest rates may be a little bit higher, but then also you want to reflect that in your prices on the end to make your money back. Makes sense?
Yes, yes. And I remember someone saying one time when they purchased their home, their, your mortgage normally stays the same depending on what type of terms are in your agreement, and your income will go up. That's kind of the same with renting, right? Because your mortgage, if you're the owner, it's going to stay pretty much the same depending on your terms, but you can keep charging more in rent, increase the rent, which means that your profit, the difference between what you're paying, for the actual property and what you're getting in, can increase. So that means that it may not be that much of a burden to you over time.
Right, correct. And also you gotta, expenses, right? You gotta calculate all that into there as well. So yes, that is the goal. Just like your rent, if you're renting right now, tell me honestly, has your rent going up? Yes.
Yeah. That's what Miss Tanya put in the chat. Crazy rentals. Yeah.
So we're a landlord, just like you're a landlord, right now. When prices go up, members, all relative. In order to stay in business, you have to understand business. This is not personal, this is business, right?
Right.
So you increase rents to keep up with the cost of things, right? Cost of goods. It's the same concept, just like your restaurant does. I remember I feel like it was yesterday. I'm like, where in the world? How much for? I'm sorry, I just wanted some salmon and some rice, right? And a couple of vegetables. Like, things have all gone up in price. So
I spent paid $4 for some eggs the other day. I was like, I remember when these eggs used to be at 98 cents.
Now you get one egg for 98 cents.
Barely, right?
Right. A half an egg
now, right?
Yeah, so it's all relative. So don't think about this as, yes, I'm not saying you factor in the interest rates in your equation, but then on the back end, you're going to look at begin with the end in mind and figure out, okay, I need to make this amount of money from the deal. Boom, this is what I'm going to purchase, and factor in all those extra holding costs you're going to have to pay.
Yeah, yes, that makes sense because, like I said, I know for me, I didn't even think about all the, like you said, the holding costs, those expenses that you have to pay between the time that you purchase the property and maybe if you're flipping it, to get money back or any type of income comes in from that property. And that's really true. Like if you're holding it, if you're going to keep that property, then you have to really make sure that you have that money set aside for any time. Like when your property is empty, then you still going to have to make sure that you have money to pay for any utilities expenses that come up, or just the regular maintenance. Like if it was your own home, and you have to replace a water heater or a refrigerator or fix something, you have to make sure that you have that money set aside separate from your personal funds. So let's talk about that a little bit, because as an investor, like you said multiple times, it's a business. So how should a person set up their finances when they are starting this business?
Good question. So I am not an attorney,
Mhm.
but I would say start off with an LLC, right? Get
Mhm.
get your house in order if you're going to really do this as a business, okay? Because the LLC has certain protections that you don't have as a person, right?
Right.
And I'm gonna be honest, this is just the country we're in. We're in the people sue if you look at them the wrong way nowadays.
Mhm.
So you want to protect that property, and you also want to protect that investor, that whoever you let you borrow the money, whether it be a hard money lender, a private lender, or a bank, right?
Mhm.
So get your affairs in order, right? You have to, know your numbers. For example, you have profit and loss statement, know your net worth, just like you're applying for a house. When they ask you all these questions when you go to purchase a house, it's the same concept, right?
Mhm.
You're just on the other end as an investor now, right? So they still want to know your numbers. They want to see that. So you got to get your house in order. It's so important. Start there. If you don't know what your net worth is, why would anybody let you borrow any money, right? So these are the kind of questions you need to start preparing and getting. That's why, having a coach or working with someone who can help you through this process, right? It can first cut years off of your time,
Mhm.
which is
Mhm.
very important. I came in here to make money. I don't have 8, 10, 12 years to be playing around with this thing. I want to really dive in and learn the business so I can be successful quicker, right? Makes sense. So
Right.
yes, that's important. You got to get your house in order first, right?
Mhm.
You need to
Mhm.
know where your money's coming from. You need to know your assets, your liabilities, your credit score, your
Mhm.
debt to income ratio. You need to know your net worth. So these are all important to know to get your house in order, because when you go to a bank or a hard money lender, you already know
Mhm.
these things and you're a new investor, they're gonna go, huh, I like this person. I think I can take a
Mhm.
chance on them, right?
Okay.
If you
Okay.
come in there and you don't have any information or any knowledge, they're gonna look at you like, come back when you know what you're doing. Okay.
Mhm.
So
Mhm. Yeah. So also, they would also need to, like as you mentioned, starting an LLC. Then they will have to make sure that they have accounts set up that are separate from their personal accounts, right? So they could have that money to um, do everything that they need to do and not mix it with the money that they are living on in their personal life.
yes.
And so making sure that you have separate bank accounts, um,
Yeah, no
going through the
co-mingling.
IRS to
IRS
tell,
will get
no,
you.
I'm sorry, what'd you say?
I said, you're right. No co-mingling, because I
Right, no commingling.
play.
Yes, yes, and that's right, because IRS is watching you. So you have to make sure that you have what that tax ID number,
Mhm.
sometimes that DUNS number and all those things in place, and knowing what those things mean, not just going
Yeah.
out and getting things because somebody told you to get it. But one thing I always would say is an educated consumer is the best customer, and you're being a consumer as well as a business owner during this period of time. So being educated in those administrative parts of the business, as well as the actual technical and functionality of business, correct?
Yes, correct. Yes,
Mhm, mhm.
100% on target. Yes, you have to know those things. Yeah.
Right, because the IRS don't care.
Mm-mm.
They don't care who you says told you whatever. They gonna come
Mm-mm.
after you. So
Yeah, yeah. No, you can't blame it on your cousin down the street.
right,
You started this. You bought this house.
right,
We're coming after you, right?
exactly,
But we
exactly.
not to scare you. We just want to
Mhm.
really, you knowledge is power when applied. I keep going back to that, but it's so true,
Right.
right? This is just to help you avoid pitfalls that other people have hit in their investment career, right? Makes sense,
Mhm,
because this is a business just like, so I tell people, think about it like this. If you work to go, right, Sharon, let's say you were applying for a job I had, and you
mhm.
come into for a job interview. First question you're gonna ask me is what? Well, what am I gonna be doing? And I
Mhm.
say to you, I don't, well, you know what? We'll just figure it out as we go along. No, sir. Red flag, flag on the play. I need
Right.
to know right now what I'm going to be doing. Because I
Mhm.
start off, you hire me, you say I'm going to be doing the books, and then you got me cleaning toilets. How I'm
Right.
going to say no because I didn't look at a job description. I didn't have anything
Mhm.
in writing to prove what I was actually going to be doing. You got to think about it like that, right? So you have to have a plan. You have to know what you're doing. You would never go into a job if you don't know what you're going to do, right?
Right.
So it's the
Right.
same concept. Don't go into a real estate investment business and you don't really know any of the terms. You don't know how much money you need. You don't know anything about assets or liabilities or profit and loss statements. Kind of get just a basic knowledge, right? Because you will have to know these things and it will help you become more successful quicker in your business. And that's the key. We want to make money. So you have
Right.
to know some things in order to make sure you're going to make your money.
Exactly. And your plan should be written down, right? Not just, this is what I have in my head and we're just going to go because, I saw Avia doing it like this. So I'm going to just go ahead and try to figure it out and
Right.
do what Avia. No, your plan should be written out. Your goals need to be SMART goals. I always say smarter goals because I always feel that you need to evaluate your goals as you're going through the process of completing them, and then maybe reward yourself at the end. But you always want to make sure that you're evaluating because you might have to pivot. You got obstacles and things that might come in your way. Life happens and you might have to, slow down for a little while, but you definitely want to have those goals written out, concrete, and share them with somebody else. Like you said, you had a coach. So I'm sure your coach was like, okay, this sounds good, but you might want to do it like this, or I can show you how to do it this way. So yeah, definitely have your goals written out, just like a vision board or wherever it is, but you have to have it written out. So Avia, we are almost out of time. I'm so glad that you are able to come to talk to us today. But before you go, I want you to tell our attendees, tell everybody on here about your class. You say that you teach on real estate investing. Tell us about that and how someone can get involved in it.
Good question. So yes, so what I do is we start off with the ABCs, right? ABCs of learning. And yes, it sounds very simplistic, but it's very important to understand the basics. Like for example, what is a wholesaler? Not necessarily you want to wholesale, but you need to know who these people are because guess what? They may be bring you some of your best deals, right? Okay, so you want to network, how to work and network with other people, how to find private money lenders, how to understand how to put together a profit and loss statement and know what your net worth is. So you can have these packages when you go to these companies like the banks or the private money lenders to make sure that you're a credible person. You need to know how to write these packages, how to write a package to a potential private money lender, which illustrates what you are, who you are, why it's important they should work with you versus someone else, what's their return on their investment, because they want to know what that is, right? So those are the kind of things I teach people in class because it's so important that you know the basic foundations, the fundamentals, so that way you can go out and be successful. And then, depending on the situation, we go find the first deal for you, right? So that is really the key to success, is really diving in deep and learning. And it's more, I'm not saying you have to, let me tell you honestly, I don't know all the parts of my car, but I know enough to be dangerous. I could tell you that. I can go to a mechanic and they think I'm a woman and I look at them and they think I don't know anything. And I'm like, okay. And I already know, no, this one trying to take my money. I know that's not what I need. I came here, sir, I know what I need, but I'm not going to tell you up front. I want to see what you think that I need. I can see if you're trustworthy, right? Makes sense?
Right, exactly. So where can they learn more information about your class, like when the next class is and how much it's going to cost and anything like how to register?
Good question. So they can reach out to me directly. So I can also on your page, I can put my information and link directly to my Facebook page for my business. And on my Facebook page, it also has a link to my site, my website for my business. And so reach out to that. I have, we have assistants that come in and answer the questions, and they'll set up appointments so we can do one-on-one, so we can make sure we can work together, because this is my business too. And my time is valuable just as your time is valuable. So we'll do an interview first to make sure we could work together right?
Mhm.
And that this will be a good relationship between us both. And then we move forward the process, and I'll tell you the next steps and how everything costs, in the total and things like that. So, but
Okay,
first we have to make sure that it's going to work best for both of us. So I'm
okay,
interviewing
okay.
you just as well as you're interviewing me.
All right, that's good. That's good. So they should come with questions, like you're going to have questions and be able to have that dialogue so you both can be educated about each other, learn about each other before making any commitments.
Yes, correct.
Great, great. And your Facebook page, is it your name? Is it your business name?
Yes, it's my business name, CAC Properties Group. Yes,
Mhm.
yes.
Okay, great. And yes, Lisa says Avia knows how to make your money grow. So yes, we haven't even gotten to the part about the financial guru that she
Right.
actually is. We might have to have her come back another day to talk about her experience prior to the real estate investing, because I knew Avia before she started going into this. So we know she's a financial guru, and she can come in and tell you about some other great things that she did in her other life. So, but Avia, I want to thank you so much for being a part of this event this evening. I'm sure not only myself, but everyone in attendance got some great information. And please check out her website, CAC Properties Group,
Yes.
and her Facebook page, and she's on LinkedIn as well as on Instagram. So she's everywhere. Social media, you find Avia, find her business, and you can learn more about how she's doing some great things, as well as how you can get involved in that too. So thank you so much, Avia.
Thank you, Sharon, for having me. It was
Oh,
wonderful.
no, thank you for taking the time out. Like you said, you're a busy woman, you're about to fly out of the state. So you have safe travels this
Thank you.
weekend. And I will talk to you soon. And thank you so much, everybody, for your attendance. And if you have any other questions, you can just put them in the chat, or you can contact Avia directly. Thanks again, Avia.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everybody.
I look forward to talking with you all soon. I hope you have a wonderful evening.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.